we do anything on our own. So they switched what I said to what they thought I would say, which is partially what I'm saying. Like, a lot of this is about writing scripts based on what they think I'm going to say because they surveilled me. So when they were talking about how disgusting I am and how I don't do this, I don't do that, they realized that, well, they said, give me credit for the things that I've done. It's worse than that. It's like not just not giving me credit for my own achievements, but putting themselves above me as the judge and jury. And I want to talk about judge and jury in gang stalking. When I go over videos of other people experiencing this and how, other people describe how they're treated by the gang stalkers, it always feels like the gang stalkers think they're superior to us. And when they try to say that I act superior, I think it's like they're competing for attention in my life. So I'm supposed to, like, even like the comments that they make while I'm just living my life at home, do this, do that, like they're better than I am. They're superior to me. They said they'll always be above me, they're living above me. And they said, how come my wanting to be superior doesn't translate to people in my videos? Because it's not it's not reality, it's their brains. That's how they feel, that's how they look at the world, that I'm like trying to be superior to them. It's like a competition. And I said this, they're upset because I used the old terms that were used when I was a kid. And partially, something that they used to say, when I was growing up, is that there are people out there who will turn their noses up at you. Yeah, somebody guessed it, turn their nose up at you. But when they need something, all of a sudden, hey, and that's how I feel about this. They turned their nose up at me too many times during this program. And it is a program. It's in New York City. I'm in the Bronx. And so when I'm showing pictures in my videos, using them as stickers on the top of my videos, they're upset by it because they were the snobs. They were the ones who turned their noses up at me. And suddenly they don't want me to look better than them. Like, what qualifies them to be judge and jury? Nothing. So when they're saying, they said, I don't like their men. I don't like anything from them. I don't like anything from them. If it comes from them, it's disgusting. So, calling me names, saying how I'm dirty, yet you said to quote them, they said this apartment was the type of apartment that they could immediately bring someone into. That was the goal. The goal was to bring people in here. And when I was watching a great video, I mean, there are people out there doing great work, and the video was talking about the foster care system. And I'm going to put it in the description of this video, but I've already put it as a post. So if you guys want to look at the post, you'll see it. And they were talking about how, the people talking to me were talking about how they thought because I don't take care of kids, they could move in a mom and a kid into my apartment with me. What? That's who they are. So suddenly they're going to move people into my apartment because for some reason they felt that because I was really into the whole family separation thing that happened where the children were being separated from their parents and put into detention centers. This was in about 2018. Yeah, 2017, 2018. That would be the mindset for me now to move in people into my apartment. Wait, this is partially the issue I'm having with them. They will take one thing and make a big deal out of it. So suddenly they're like, well, what was your alternative? I've given my alternative repeatedly. It was never to now suddenly bring people into my apartment to live with me. The alternative was not to separate children from their parents. And the goal to me for foster care is never to separate a child from the parent unless there's some sign of abuse. It's not, the goal is never to have a child without a parent unless it can be helped. But that to me is a bigger issue. It doesn't get solved by people fraudulently separating children from their parents, because I think that happens a whole lot, or worse, putting people in other people's apartments without their consent, or putting them in a situation where they would think the best way to make money is to take advantage of children, because that's all that is. But that's who they are. They feel that they have some, born with some sort of superior genes, and that I'm not. So I could be, they keep talking about me washing my private area. I mean, you would think, okay, no issues with me washing anything else, but all of a sudden, private area. And I'm like, what is this conversation really about? What it's about is that instead of just talking to me, which is horrible, they're talking to a lot of other people. So they said something about the celebrities. I don't get into that because I don't know the gossip. I don't care. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't care. But they're also talking like if they say something about me, then later on I'll find something in the news that's about a celebrity. So they work in close contact with lawyers, doctors, celebrities have other people, I don't know, but like they got people. So, and they're talking these things out loud. So when I find out something and I see it like on the news usually, or maybe I'm scrolling on YouTube and I find that out, I'm like, well, how would they know that in advance? So I can't be the only person that they have monitored. So either they're currently monitoring other people or they have monitored these people. I don't know. But I want to know why are they allowed to do this? So they just said, I have a police detail. That's a quote from them. I have a police detail. They said, pull the plug on this. So the other issue I want to talk about is when they were talking about things, they kept coming up with alleged, incidents that happened that didn't happen. They clearly based on, the pictures that I've proven. Why are we going based on my pictures if you lied and said you were surveilling me all my life? But clearly based on the pictures, I wasn't a child prostitute, drug dealing, homeless as a teenage person. Now, why am I saying it that way? I'm saying because instead of focusing on the bigger issues, all of those are big issues. We're focusing on lying about me and my life, which goes back to what I'm saying. I don't trust these people with children. I don't trust them in making decisions for anyone, let alone children. To even make up those lies to me means that they don't care about those issues. So what they're trying to do is use, at one point they just said Catholic shame. I told you guys repeatedly, I went to Catholic school, but I didn't become Catholic until the very end of senior year of high school. So I didn't grow up with Catholic guilt or Catholic shame. It's a lot of it I can't understand because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So even when in terms of when they're saying like they have put us into different groups, it seems like the people they monitor are in different groups. The idea of Catholic shame or Catholic guilt doesn't make sense to me. And if that makes me, and that's, when they say, oh, I seem like I'm cold, if that makes me cold or different, then that could explain a lot of it. The idea that, I've lived 52 years on this earth and I should be shamed or guilty by people who are criminals, who abuse people, who talk about sex with, I can't even say it because it's not allowed, but they say it and describe it. I should be intimidated by them, and they should be allowed to shame anyone. So the other part of that is that when we're talking about them creating voices for people, which puts people in a category of usually mental illness. Thankfully, people are now talking about this more, and it's not an automatic thing of mental illness. It shouldn't be at all, because there are physical symptoms that you can have that can bring on changing of your hearing. But in this case, it's not even that. It's just people talking out loud and putting radio signals and transmissions out loud, radio waves, heating our heads with some sort of microwave, EMF, or radio frequencies. and then faking the voices, which is it's supposed to be V2K, but V2K can't carry full conversations. It carries sounds, click maybe a word, but the technology isn't there to carry 24/7 talking by multiple people in different places. That doesn't make any sense. But the bigger issue I'm having with them, that if they can manipulate people into feeling, they just said religion. If they can manipulate people, and you see I have all the tune that my lips are peeling, the technology they use just dries everything. So if they can manipulate people into feeling either Catholic guilt, I'll say Jewish guilt, Protestant guilt, Muslim guilt, Buddhist guilt, any kind of guilt, it's an issue. And we're talking about this like this, and we're talking about people verifying this is a real thing, gang stalking is a real thing, then they're using that to find people to commit crimes, to find people to recruit, to do the wrong thing. If this system, which is whenever I call the police, they lower the sounds, they hide everything. If this is being hidden and they substitute actual people talking to hide the technology, which is a radio signal, there's an issue. So for me to go along with that in general and not talk about it, not call the police, not report to the FBI, they said, see, they said, see, they say, I say, see, they say it all the time. It's the brainwashing. We all start to talk alike. So they say, see, the FBI wasn't for you. The FBI didn't help you. And that's another thing I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how if we have law enforcement and for some reason they aren't coming out and telling the world, there's a such thing as gangs stalking people because they need people. When I was talking about this, I said growing up, for the most part, I don't even remember anyone ever going through something like this, where people would like do all this type of stuff. I don't remember any of this. So they said, oh, didn't you say at one point, they said, didn't you say that you experienced something like this before? Never. You think if I experienced something like this before, I would have stayed quiet? The stalking that I experienced before, I talked about, but this is it's completely different. So they always did these tactics, but I probably didn't realize it. Well, when did they have this audio out loud like this every place I go? They admit they didn't. So part of this program is to say one thing one time, then say something different. So to keep you engaged, keep you constantly, I call it overstimulated. But for me, it's engaged. It's like, it's like once they put it in the computer can spit out, okay, this is the time to say such and such. And as a victim, I would be sitting here going over the same stories over and over again. When they said, I will never be sexy to white men anymore. Well, there are other races. So they don't like when I talk about men. But hey, I'm human. But the bottom line is that that's how I feel about it. So in their minds, I'm supposed to feel like, oh, nobody will ever want me. Well, there are other races. Somebody will want me. Somebody will say, she's okay with me. And that's part of how they think, that it's about shame. It's about blame. It's about, you'll never, the word never, which I tell them they use all the time. They said I use it, they use it all the time. So you'll never get something better. You'll never do better than us. We're the best thing that's the kind of mindset. We're the best thing that's ever happened to you. Before you met, that's how I feel. Before you met us, you were nothing. We are making you famous. That's what they've been talking about, that they're making you famous. Do you really think that if I wanted to be famous, I would have gone through this? So they were like, well, talk about watching something. Here we go. Again, the private areas. That's the focus. So they're ashamed. They're ashamed that I said that there are other races of men. That's shameful. Yelling out your window isn't shameful. Saying all these lies about me that I can show proof and say that's not true. So the other part of that is they said, well, they expect me to show so much more proof. How much more proof? I've been doing this since 2019. They just said something, and that sounded different. That sounded different. So we're talking about years of doing this. So they said, if I'm always live streaming myself, recording myself, then what was the point of them doing this system? It was because they wanted to get famous. They said that they want to be like the woman Anna DeVolnay, who Anna DeVolnay or something, the woman who was arrested in New York. I don't know. Meaning that's what they want for themselves, to make themselves famous by doing something. And as you can tell, I don't know really the details of that, but that's what I'm telling you. They're actually talking about things that could never be a voice in my head. These are full conversations, full goals of theirs to make themselves famous. So they're exploiting me and my YouTube channel, which is they admitted they targeted, to make themselves famous. So they want to be like a famous person. And my point becomes to them, if you want to be famous, why don't you do something that requires you to be famous? This doesn't. The other part is they said, I'm just going over some of the other things. I have my, like when I do a video, I write the title down. When they were talking about like some of the things, the tactics, they said, what are the odds that with like the countries that are from Russia, Germany, Cuba? Yeah, that's my point. Okay, when you have those countries involved in anything, to me, going back to what I'm saying about they tried to say that I had some sort of power. They tried to say that I had some sort of power that was helping law enforcement. I have no sort of power helping law enforcement. I think this is what hurt law enforcement for years. I think by having this stuff out loud, talking about all this, it confused so many cases. And I think it hurt law enforcement, but I think it also, which is probably their goal. I mean, I'm not saying they did this to help law enforcement. They did it to hurt law enforcement. But I think it's probably hurt victims more than anyone. Because by putting all these voices out loud and giving, each other information about victims, it hurt people's cases. So I feel like if I had a case, God forbid, a criminal case, and all these people are talking, they're making my case worse. Because how do you get a jury that, especially here in the Bronx, that wouldn't know, oh, this happened and that happened? So I think that's partially what this did, especially for a lot of New York cases. A lot of cases here in New York, you try to get a jury that doesn't know all the details about a person, or, wouldn't have prejudged the case. But if you have these voices here in New York City, where a lot of big cases are tried, you're skewing the decision in advance. And that's part of what I'm telling these folks. This is not a justice system anymore. So they said, they said that about me also. They said, well, there will be people who dislike me because of the work that I'm doing. Yes, but imagine if this were a criminal case. You know how many people who would dislike me because of the voices? So that's why I'm fighting. So they said when I go like this, I'm doing something with my teeth. I am. I'm doing something with my teeth. I am. So in any moment of my life, they're going to have an opinion. They're going to have a comment on every single thing. So this is what we're going to do. So they said whenever I like this and I like lean on my thing, I'm like a monkey. Again, this is what I have to listen to 24/7. They've already poisoned a lot of jurors in general because they talk about celebrities and the cases end up coming up in the news. And of course, when the cases come up, that affects it. We're talking about people's rights. We're talking about people who can, you know, I'm not defending a criminal, but I'm also not going to break the law by destroying that person's chance to get justice. You're not guilty until you're found guilty. What is the saying? Innocent until proven guilty. These people have you guilty until proven innocent. And that's why I'm angry about a lot of this. So they said, Shamega, we broke the law. You broke the law and keep breaking it. And by breaking the law repeatedly 24/7, you've proven people guilty before giving them a chance to prove themselves innocent. So it's not, they've changed the legal system. It's innocent until proven guilty. In this case, I was guilty until I proved myself innocent. It wasn't like I could just say, and you guys know, I've said repeatedly, I'm innocent. I didn't do these things. I didn't do it. I had to prove myself innocent. So finally, what is this? 2026. This started with them accusing me of things I believe in 2018. I would wake up at night and hear something, and I started emailing myself, which means I have proof. And I did it. I won't do it now, but I did a middle finger. And so I would see them in the street and I'd go like this. So they got really offended because I knew it was them. They were gang stalkers. So they got really offended. They're like, that's rude. No, that's how I feel about them. So that was in 2018. So I had to, 8 years? It took me 8 years for them to finally admit they were wrong and I'm innocent. So I had to take 8 years of my life to prove myself innocent because I was already declared. They called me every criminal thing in the law. You guys know this. So they said, I have a video coming up, and in the video I say that I'm going to use the same thumbnails I used in the Cup of Jar production, which is this channel, and I was doing the video for the Shamega J channel about paranoia because of Stasi tactics, I think it is, and paranoia, something like that. And so they said, you lied. Right there, they called me a liar. And they said, I am not using the same thumbnail from the video. But the sentence is, I'm using the same thumbnail from the video about paranoia because of Stasi's tactics. So meaning it's just the argument that they want. It's just the argument. It's just to keep me fighting and exhaust me. Just constant fighting to, exhaust me. And I think when I see, and I'm not talking about any particular celebrity, I'm just talking in general. I think that's how a lot of celebrities must feel, where it's lawsuits just to exhaust them, or cases just to exhaust you. You go through the case, and you're proven innocent, and then another case and another case. So for me, I don't have the cases because it's supposed to be in my head. I'm supposed to be thinking these things. So nothing, no arrest, no police, nothing, just them yelling out windows, putting this in a radio signal, walking by me with cell phones. And someone did a video where he's insulting me, like, oh, I'm lying about this. You can, people have a right to disbelieve what I'm saying, but it's real. They called people to do this. They actually have people doing this. So it wasn't like, I mean, could you imagine had they done it without having anyone else involved but just them? Then I would look like I'm crazy. But they called people. What they did was they said, and I believe them. They said they called people because they said they were going to do something fun for me. So to trick people into doing it, someone just said they lied. Yeah, so they were going to do something fun for me, and it turned out to be this. But the only other reason why I'm not too stressed that people will think I'm lying is because, like I said, the people involved have a history of doing things like this, and it's not just to me. So they're upset that I even revealed that, but it was revealed throughout my lifetime. So I'm okay with them being upset. You know, they said they're going to keep doing this to harass me, which proves that I'm right about it. You don't do it unless it's right. Okay, I just muted for a few moments. They said then they leave me. That's the whole point. There's something in them that seems to think that they were doing something good for me. You folks brought all of this into my life to stop me from filing an imaginary lawsuit against Lacoste. That's what this was about. And what I'm saying is, what about you would make you think that it would be better to do that than to let the worst thing happen in your mind? Let it happen. What is it about you folks that you can't see that what you think you're doing for good is so evil and so terrible that you had to be shamed into apologizing to me? That's what this is about. This is about how shame from exposure made this change. And it's still not over. They're still doing it. They're still doing something to my head because they said I should be seeing things when I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping. When I'm asleep, I see nothing. I wake up to them talking, describing stuff to pretend that this was real pseudoscience that came again from Europe. This isn't even an American system. And I want to know who in this state and city and borough thinks this is okay. They said it's about Democrats. It's nothing about Democrats. It's about criminals. You could be a Democratic criminal, Republican criminal, socialist criminal, independent criminal, communist criminal. It's about criminality and the inability to stop harassing me. Don't put me in a book. Don't ask me to come to any events. Leave me alone. And they can't understand I have that right as an American to be left alone. I never gave over my rights as a citizen. You know what was so weird is when they were coming up with these dreams, they described how I was going to go and live. They just said, I think it's Sweden, but it's been other places. It's been other places that they thought I would go. At one point, I had this channel before and it had videos, and somebody subscribed to my channel and they started talking about that guy being gay and he was dating the guy I met at Lacoste at the is reconnecting. So they had this whole he was the boy is reconnecting. So they had this whole he was the boyfriend of the guy I met and he was angry. Friend of the guy I met and he was angry and was stalking me because the guy liked me at the boutique. They then ended that story and came up with a new story, which was that the guy at the boutique, they said was gay. Again, every guy is gay for them. They said that's their coalition. So what I'm saying to them is that if your coalition is for gay men, why would you involve me? It wouldn't make any sense. So partially when they're involved, the stories are going to always be about people being gay. When the other coalition's involved, it's always going to be about some sort of stealing or crime. Then there's another part of their coalition that talks about, like I said, religious, like, guilt. You did this, you did that. Aren't you this, or aren't you? So it's always this type of thing where once you get their mindset, you start to say to yourself, what does any of this have to do with me? It has nothing to do with me. They said they're taking us off. So they're taking them off. I want to know who created these dreams and how much do they pay these people to come up with these dreams? And for all the other people who they supply these dreams to, what was the point of it? What was the point of these dreams? They said they get paid. The reason they have to stay in touch with me is because they have to come into my apartment, film things so that when they create the dreams, they know what they're talking about. But it's also part of the surveillance where they can fake knowing where everything is. So like they did something where they put this technology and made me sick, and I could be like right here, I could just, they'll say, oh, you have a pill bottle, and then I have a pill bottle. So that's what this was supposed to be, meaning they always have to come and gain access to the apartment so that they know what I have. So just now they said, oh my goodness, now people will know you actually had to take medication. That's what I'm saying. Is this really what people spent millions of dollars on? So they said, now I can drop the Catholic school vibe. What does that mean? Let's see what they say. They didn't answer. So I guess dropping the Catholic school vibe means something to them. Again, it's like speaking another language to me. I don't understand what that means. It's that's what I'm saying. Like, they wanted to involve themselves in my life, but we would never have been compatible or in each other's lives normally. We just wouldn't. I don't know what dropping the Catholic school vibe means. I usually don't say the word vibe anymore. I don't say the word vibe. So let's see what else they want to talk about. Nothing. So the other point I want to talk about is they stopped. Just when I was about to talk, they started talking so that I couldn't hear what they said. So the other point I wanted to talk about this is that's another issue I think we have, besides the bigger surveillance, talking all day, trying to railroad me into prison. The other issue is if you aren't hanging out with someone, I'll use like just regular, and all of a sudden someone is going to pretend that they know you and that they were hanging out with you years ago. Everybody would know that's a lie. I don't understand why it would even be an issue that they could pretend that they know me. They don't. And they said something that started to understand why. I can't hear exactly what they're saying. They did make it lower. They made it lower. They said eventually it'll just go away. That would be nice. So part of this whole issue becomes, if this is happening in the Bronx, I'm in the Bronx, I'm in Co-op City. You guys who know this account know you keep seeing like Co-op City. It's where I live. And they're trying to say this happened in other places before. I don't think it did. They said, what did they just say? Now they're talking. They talk over what I'm saying so that as I'm talking to you, they're having a whole other conversation. If I stop, then they stop talking. In Co-op City, it's a big area. And at one point, they had an article that said people in Europe found out about Co-op City because we have a Co-op City paper, and they thought it was like a great place. So partially, we became a billboard outside your wall here in the Bronx. Apartments became empty. Then they put some sort of like big other thing, and it fell. So there were things that happened before this happened to me. And I think it was just an attempt to get rid of the old residents who were here for decades and bring in new people like from Europe or from other countries who think this is a great place to live. But then suddenly you start this surveillance system. So my point was, maybe that was the issue. Maybe this wasn't an accident. It just was one thing after another with them. So I'm going to continue just to, sit here, see what they want to talk about. They talked about my mustache. They said they think the hydrogen peroxide kind of lightened it. I was going to shave it. Like I used to have to shave my mustache. But I think if the hydrogen peroxide lightened it, I'm going to leave it, because if I shave it again, I'll have to keep shaving it. So they were like, oh, one time years ago, this could have been like in 2007, I'm talking about almost 20 years ago. My coworker and I were talking because she had facial hair and I have facial hair. And so they said, the people talking said, oh yeah, you've said that, but we never noticed it until, I guess, I started doing these videos. But then they said, when I was at Fordham, so that could have been maybe freshman year, one of my classmates at Fordham mentioned she had facial hair. And they said, I said I didn't have facial hair. No, that wasn't the conversation. The conversation was, she said she has facial hair. I said, oh, I have facial hair too. She's like, oh, I really don't see it too much. And I was like, no, I definitely have it. So now that I'm in videos, you can definitely see I am one of the girls who has facial hair. I'm a facial hair girl. And, so that was that story. I'm trying to give you as many of their stories as possible. So they just said, somebody shame on you. Again, I hate that phrase. I hate that shame on you, because that goes back to this whole system. This system is about shame. People weren't here. So, it's like all these things that they started to do to shame people. Like I said in the earlier live about, I got my menstrual cycle. So they were like, didn't you once say menstrual? I got my menstrual cycle, and they all of a sudden they shame me, like, aren't you going to get in the shower and wash? Again, it's this whole idea that they know so much. They're so much smarter and better than everyone. And they don't like the fact that people call them evil, the devil, demons. But that's how they make people, that's the extent they drive us to. Where you feel like, you start to feel like, oh, that is shameful, and I don't want that. I don't want to live my life like that, feeling shame, feeling guilt, feeling those type of emotions that make people do the wrong things. And this is partially what I'm saying. I'm telling the world, these people were not doing this when the grandparents' generation was around. They weren't. The grandparents would have taken care of it. I'm not going to say anything else. They would never have allowed any of this, putting people's business out loud and getting facts wrong. It's pure evil. It's evil. They said, talk about your crusty lips. This technology causes it. The lip balm really helps, but I haven't been using it. I haven't been feeling well. So I should be using the lip balm, but I'm not. Instead, you can see the turmeric on my lips. It dries, this technology dries everything out. You know, they said they were surprised. I'm going to see if I can lower this a little bit, that my skin on my chest isn't as irritated as it used to be, thankfully. So they said, how many days am I going to wear the same outfit? As long as it takes to get rid of you, folks. As long as it takes to get rid of you. If it takes crusty lips, wearing the same clothes. How do I get rid of these folks now that they came into my life? So I'll be doing a lot more lives. If you guys have questions, please leave comments. I'll try to answer comments. I'm just going to come back on, do more lives. Just keep, you know, to keep them out there in public. You guys want to be famous, you guys want to do the wrong thing, then you guys will get the fame you want. It's not worth it to me to worry more about crusty lips than to expose this. Exposing this is, you know, the biggest priority right now in my life. So before I end this live, let's see if they have anything else to say. Okay, I don't think they have another comment. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing these videos, liking. It makes a difference. Please take a look at the post. I'm going to put in the description of this video the video about foster children, and I just will continue to fight. I'm not going to give up, and I'm not going to let them drive me. They said they think I'm going to one day commit. You know what? I'm not going to do that. Thank you so much for everything.